Hello and welcome to Retro Racing Reviews, where this time out we're going to be taking a quick look back at the Australian Grand Prix 2017. Now, I'm just doing a few laps of Albert Park, just so you can get an idea of how difficult the Australian Grand Prix circuit actually is, which would give a good reason for why we saw so few overtakes. It's never really been a track for high drama. The only moments that people tend to remember from Australian Grand Prix of previous years were the massive shunts that Martin Brundle and Fernando Alonso had at the same corner, separated by 20 years, and the pilots that you tend to get off the start line because of the nature of the first couple of corners. But apart from that, people tend to look at the crashes more than the racing. It's always been that way. There's not really been an awful lot to shout about, and certainly with the new cars we can see how tricky it's going to be for people to get past each other during the season. So the race itself, apart from the Alonso versus Ocon versus Hulkenberg battle, which was kind of brought about because Alonso's car was braking once again, that was kind of the main point of drama on track. But the rest of the race was quite interesting to see how everything played out. So without further ado, I'll launch into a few of the takeaways from the weekend. So first of all, you had the fact that Hamilton didn't win, which I personally thought he'd be nailed on, given I would say the impressive pace that he managed to show in the weekend. And I think that it's indicative of the fact that Ferrari have closed the gap so much that Hamilton wasn't really able to break Vettel in the early part of the race. So when he then got put into traffic by his pit stop, it was then very much for Vettel to start showing the pace of the Ferrari and finishing over 10 seconds ahead, when you would have thought that Hamilton would have tried to have closed the gap back in. It says a lot about what sort of a championship I think we're in for. I would suggest from looking at this that Hamilton will, I guess more often than not, get the better of Vettel in qualifying. I think the Mercedes might have the overall one-lap pace, but certainly Vettel can carry on lapping quickly over quite a long period of time from the looks of things without being too hard on the tyres. And I think from the radio chatter, Hamilton was certainly saying he was struggling at various points along the way. So it's going to be interesting. I think you've got two drivers at the top of their game in very competitive cars, and hopefully they'll have a bit of a ding-dong battle for the season going forward. What was also encouraging was that Bottas was pretty close overall to the pace of the top two, and I think that once he beds down into Mercedes and gets a few more miles under his belt, I think he could start to come good later on in the year. Now, I was very suspicious of whether Bottas would actually do a good job this season, because let's face it, at Williams he's been a steady performer, and it's only really been in the last year or so, when Massa thought he was on the way out, that Bottas really started to get the better of him, I would guess, on a regular basis. So I'm there thinking, yeah, Felipe is a good driver, but his best years are long past him, and Bottas wasn't really putting him away. It's not like when you get certain veteran drivers get blown away by the competition, like Schumacher did to Piquet, for example. That Bottas hasn't really done that. It was just the fact that Williams didn't really want to give Massa another year until they had no option. Massa was, I think, quite keen to continue, but obviously his enthusiasm flagged over the season when he knew he wasn't getting rehired. So yeah, there's that. But from the looks of things, Bottas put in a really solid performance. He spent quite a decent amount of time in the midsection of the race, slowly closing the gap on Hamilton. Admittedly, his tyres were fresher, but he was able to go quite a bit longer on the ultrasofts. So I think overall he's looking in a good place. So I don't think it's going to be too much of a shout to see him maybe taking a race win I would guess by halfway through the season. So probably the biggest disappointment, I would have to say, would be Raikkonen's performance, given that he'd actually performed well against Vettel last year, and he slid backwards into the clutches of Verstappen, and the Red Bull clearly isn't able to take on the Ferrari and Mercedes at the present time. So I think Kimi needs to buck his ideas up. It's one of those ones where that second race seat is going to be prized property, I would suggest. And you're looking at people like Grosjean, for example, obviously in a Ferrari customer team at the moment, but that's the kind of job you'd think he'd step up for. So I think Kimi's on borrowed time on this evidence, but he has come back strongly last year, so let's just see what happens on that front. Verstappen drove a solid race. I don't think the car was never going to fall back into the clutches of the midfield runners, but just wasn't really able to do much other than keep Kimi honest for the duration of the race. So other than that, I think he did a reasonable job, and we didn't really get to see what Danny Rick could do, because his car decided to fail him twice, and that was a shame. It's his home race. He's not had the best of luck over the last few years. So yeah, disappointed, but he'll bounce back. I think Grosjean certainly showed decent pace, and I think the Haas could be a good package in the midfield this season. Williams, Force India, Renault, they all seem to have. I think they'll all be kind of there and thereabouts. And the Toro Rossos ran strongly. I think the main problem with them is, can they keep the development going over the course of the year? They tend to start strong and then go backwards. So let's see if they can keep it up. I mean, cracking drive from Sainz and Kvyat. Not really sure. Don't really rate him all that much. I think he should join the parade of Toro Rosso drivers who've gone off and been successful in Formula E, but that's just me. He obviously wants to keep going with it, so who am I to argue? So other than that, the Sauers were pretty slow and forgettable. Giovinazzi parachuted in at the last minute. I think he did a decent job. He didn't crash into anybody, didn't do anything stupid, but didn't really get an idea of how quick he actually was. McLarens were just, again, disappointing. Feel sorry for Alonso, driving all that way and having the car crap out in the last few laps. Not ideal. Other than that, I think you can't really reserve judgment on Stroll, because he didn't do enough during the race to warrant either positive or negative feedback. And yeah, I mean, Massa had a solid drive, didn't really do anything spectacular. It was just a lot of steady running in. It actually felt more like a test session for a lot of the teams, and I think that's probably where we're at the moment. So overall, looking promising, I would say, for a close battle for the title. I think a lot of it will be decided on strategy, on race performance. I think it's one of those ones where qualifying is going to be vital at circuits like Monaco, Hungaroring, that kind of thing, like it always is. It'll be much harder to get past on other tracks as well, but it'll be interesting to see in China, because they've got obviously a long winding right-hander onto a massive straight with DRS. It'll be interesting to see how many overtakes they manage with that, because I think they had over 100 last year, so I'd maybe go for something in the 50-60 bracket, just because it'll be a little harder to follow off that turn. So if they have obviously more than Australia, but not so many as they had last year, I think that'll probably even things out a bit. So the main thing with Australia is that you've got lots of slow corners that people can kind of accelerate away from, and there's not much opportunity to sort of get onto somebody's tail and really put the pressure on them. So it's one of those ones where, coming out the final corner, there's not really much of a chance to sort of wind up and get the DRS going before you're at the end of the straight. You'll see from the footage that there's a lot of sort of point and squirt corners taken in third gear or fourth gear, 90 degree or thereabouts corners that don't really give you the opportunity to overtake. The DRS zones there's a couple of them, but they are quite relatively short, and it's never been great for the overtakes on that basis. So roll on China, there's always incidents on the first lap because of the long loop on the right hander, and then you've got a massive straight where hopefully we'll get some overtaking done, but it's going to be a lot faster. Hopefully people will go quite aggressive, and I'm looking forward to it. So here's to a tight fight. Well played Seb and Ferrari, and we'll go on to the next one. So thanks for listening, and I'll get back to the review side of things very shortly. If you like the video, please click like, subscribe, and share it around, and hope to see you next time out. Many thanks. Bye.